Hi and welcome to One Patriots Place, brought to you by the E2G Sports Network with me, Clazzy Clare Cooper, and him, Thomas Murphy. We are hoping even to welcome in a guest this morning, but due to the free agency frenzy, we're a little bit unsure. So we're rolling with just the two of us for now, folks. You'll just have to put up with him and me, and we'll have to see how it goes. Because yes, there was breaking news. Jakobi Meyers has been scooped up as he expected him to be. I was on the fence. I think I had the sort of naivety, the romance that he was going to be back to New England, I suppose. And gone over to the Raiders, which feels like another little stab in the gut. He's gone to the Josh McDaniels.
Josh playing the old friend card.
He's gone
like
for,
every coach, every coach in the NFL does. You go out and get your former players and bring them in. Yes, they do. They really do.
Ian Rappaport reported. Oh, I'm sorry, Murph, didn't mean to cut you off. But Ian Rappaport has reported that the Raiders are signing Patriots free agent wide receiver Jakobi Meyers to a 3-year deal with $33 million, $21 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and and he's got Jimmy Garoppolo as well, hasn't he? Now, so there's a bit of a
exactly.
Stop
not that
trying to be the Patriots and just be the Raiders.
Yep, can't do that. Can't do that. And quite honestly, a lot of fan bases around the country have got to be sick of it. They really, with what Texas does and the Raiders and what Flo did down there in Miami while he was down there. It's just, it's just pile on, just bring it. I'll bring the guys that I know. I dance with the guys who got me here. And it never works out. This deal kind of ticks me off a little bit though.
Everything ticks you off, Matt.
Let's
not sugarcoat it now, shall
we? Let's not sugarcoat it. No, let's not sugarcoat it. This was a doable number. It came in under what they were expecting, and I said all along that I wouldn't pay Jakobi Meyers $15 million a year or $14 million a year. But what did you say the average on this was? 10 million?
It was 21 million guaranteed.
Right.
So
33 million, 21 million guaranteed. And that's just, it's a number that the Patriots could have hit. Now, I have never been the biggest fan of Jakobi Meyers. I like him as a person. I think he's a good wide receiver. But he's that, I got to the yard marker and that's about all I'm going to do. There's no after the catch. There's no yak. Where's my yak? I need the yak.
We all know that Murph needs himself some yak. I mean, the one thing that you could look at from this is because they haven't paid Meyers. There's two things that you could sort of look at in that respect. Is they're saving the money because they're going to do a big drop on a really good O-line guy, and they want the money to spend.
Yep.
It's easy enough saying, "Oh, we could have done that." Yeah, but if they really need to drop a good chunk on a good O-lineman, then that. I mean, there was a guard.
If this means I get Orlando Brown, I'm happy.
See, there you go. This is where I was going with it because they've just done a big deal on the guard. What's his name? Hold on, I will get it. The guard that went to. Oh no, he was retained. Who am I thinking of? Oh, I could have sworn I wrote it down. I apologize. There was a dude that had
Denver, Nate Davis.
No, the one that they signed an extension.
Who, the Patriots?
No, somebody signed an extension on a guard and it was a big load of money. It was 105 million or something.
Wow. Okay.
But anyway, we'll put a pin into that because I can't remember because our guest is here. Welcoming him to One Patriots Place. It is our guest today on this eve of the free agency frenzy, or in the middle of the free agency frenzy, from NBC Sports Boston, the superb, the suave, the senator himself. It is Mr. Phil Perry. Phil, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate that. We had a little breaking news there, so sorry I'm late.
No. Getting those tweets out were definitely more important than the two of us. And that was great. I thought you'd be sitting there at the keyboard writing up 500 words as to why the hell Jacoby Myers walked out the door for, a hell of a lot less than you and I thought he was going to get on the open. Well, more than I thought he was going to get on the open market. I'm not really sure what you thought about that. But
yeah, what I've been told, Murph, is that, the NFL, and this isn't universal, but I talked to multiple teams that pegged his market as somewhere probably between $12 and $14 million a year. He was never really viewed as a Christian Kirk type. Some teams told me, mid-teens millions, maybe up to 16 even. And then, I had others that were a little bit more firm in terms of, hey, maybe he tops out at 15 per year. So this is on the lower end, no question. Like you said, 12 to 14, and this comes in at 11. So this is a great deal for the Raiders. What I'm interested to find out now, and I'm trying to find out as we speak, did the Patriots offer him the same thing, or maybe even a little bit more, guys, and he just would rather be in a place where he knows the offense has a lot of weapons there, where he knows the coordinator. He doesn't know Bill O'Brien. We think Bill O'Brien's bringing the Patriots offense back to, the Josh McDaniels offense back to New England, but he's got a good relationship with Josh. He knows how he'll be used there. And, also no state income tax out there in Nevada. So that maybe is a factor too. So I'm just of the mind that if you're the Patriots, there are certain players, especially at this point in where your franchise is at in terms of its big picture trajectory. You want culture guys, you want leaders, you want the next wave of Patriots pillars in that locker room, and Myers to me should have been one of those guys. He's not a number one receiver. He's not the most dynamic guy on the planet, but he does everything the right way. Undrafted guy, says all the right things, is exactly what you're looking for in the locker room, in the community. Like I really thought he could be a program player for Bill Belichick moving forward. And again, maybe they tried to keep him. Like I said, we'll see what their final offer was to him, or we'll try to get that information. But the fact that he's out the door now leaves a real void in more ways than one. They've got to get to work at that receiver spot, because if you want to be a really good offense, you want to contend in this league, you got to have receivers, and they don't have much there right now, in my opinion.
Is age a factor in this signing for the Raiders? Robert Woods, just signed with Houston for I think it was 15-2 just yesterday. Or is it, Jacoby is just that much better than Robert Woods at this stage of his career?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's both. And Woods has dealt with a lot of injury. Myers is tough. I mean, Myers, what I've been told was, hey, in all honesty, the Patriots probably value him more than the rest of the league does, because he does not have the burner speed. He's not going to take the top off the defense, which is what everybody's looking for. But he does separate. He does block. He does those things that the Patriots like. Well, it turns out he went to a Patriots adjacent program, right? If the Patriots like it, the Raiders probably like it. The Texans probably would like that kind of style of play. So, the Cardinals, that would have been an interesting match for me, for a team that again is looking for leaders, is looking for program guys. The Cardinals are going to completely turn over their roster here, I think, in the next couple of years. So that would have made sense as a match. But this is a guy who's still in the prime of his career and does what he does really well. And again, there's a limit in terms of how much value that brings to a team, and how much teams are going to be willing to spend on that. But I bet he's going to be on the field a bunch. You put him there with Devontae Adams and Darren Waller and Josh Jacobs, and you've got a pretty tough team. You've got a team that can run the ball, whether they've got two tight ends on the field or just one. You can use Myers almost like a tight end in some blocking situations. So makes all the sense in the world for the Raiders. Would have made a lot of sense for the Patriots, but he's moving on.
It really does. Is Josh channeling his inner Bill Parcells here in this offseason, bringing in Myers, and yesterday signing Jimmy Garoppolo to I don't want to call it a monster deal, but it's some pretty good coin Jimmy ended up getting out there.
Yeah, I mean, this is you're seeing it in Houston too. Nick
we were talking
trades for Shaq Mason, right? So people want people that they know. This is a people business. And while the skill sets that you can measure at the combine and the statistics on paper are all great and they are all part of the equation, you want to know how a guy's going to fit in the room with the other human beings that he's going to have to work with on a day in, day out basis. And so that would have a lot of value for Josh McDaniels with Jacoby Myers, with Jimmy Garoppolo, with your guy, Brandon Bolden, who gets out to Vegas with him. You know, those are the kinds of people that you want to surround yourself with, surround your program with. It's what Bill Belichick did when he was here in the early years. Think of all the, the Jets that made their way through Gillette Stadium. Early days with Belichick. So I think that's something that's happening right now in Vegas.
Phil, just before you popped in, we were talking about kind of the costing factor of if Jacoby has been, shall we say, sacrificed, and that just because they're trying to push the money into something like a big offensive tackle, that kind of thing, or even, dare we say it, a big wide receiver. Now, I was mentioning a guard who had been paid, and I found out who it was. It was the Falcons had extended Lindstrom's 5-year, $105 million deal. And I thought that was quite big money for a right tackle. So I wanted to just quickly get your opinion on that, because it was something I was going to ask you a little bit later in the show, but I kind of wanted to clarify to everybody I hadn't gone crazy. I knew something had happened that was big money for a guard. I knew it was somewhere in these crazy notes. So do you think that is big money for a guard? And also in regards to the tackle thing, I want to ask you about there's a lot of talk now. Murph even said it himself that there's money now left for Orlando Brown because he's going to be a tackle that's going to expect big money. And I wanted to ask you about him because KC have just paid Jawan Taylor, but they've let Brown go. Do you think that maybe has a knock-on effect on Brown's price?
Yeah, so with Brown, I think the expectation is that he'll still come in at a pretty big number. Now, what his demands are and what his market is could be two different things. He views himself as a left tackle. I think the league views him as a right tackle, in all honesty. Now, it all takes is one team, two teams, if you want to get into a bidding war and really raise the price. But he's a large man who is a good athlete, but not a great athlete, not your dancing bear type of left tackle. And I think it spoke volumes that the Chiefs were willing to let him go and then go pay Jawan Taylor, probably put him on the left side and have him be sort of, your pass protector extraordinaire. He's not much of a run blocker. Orlando Brown will do something for you in the run game, which I think the Patriots would like. It's just a question of how much does he want? And what I was told before the legal tampering period began was that he's probably going to be too expensive for the Patriots. And they were looking more closely at the tier of tackles that included Taylor, included Mike McGlinchey, and included Caleb McGarry, who is still available. So that's somebody that be playing on the right side for the Patriots. Again, another really good run blocker, maybe even better than Brown. I think more questions in terms of what he's giving you in pass protection. But if he's making a little bit less than McGarry, that would be sort of a classic Belichick signing to me, where you have three tackles that are all sort of in the same tier, right? Which I think is how they viewed these three guys. McGarry, Taylor, and McGlinchey. And if you have them all rated about the same and two guys go on day one for a lot of money, is it not the ultimate Bill Belichick thing to do to say, oh, look at these dummies spending all this money on these guys. I'm gonna wait until day 2 or day 3 and get the same player for less, right? So that's what I could see happening with Bill Belichick if they really are interested in McGarry. Now that you're not paying Jacoby Myers, maybe that does free up some money to spend on the offensive line. Your guard point is a good one. Chris Lindstrom, pride of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I should mention. Chris Lindstrom and Boston College. That is a lot of money for a guard, and I don't think it necessarily impacts them this offseason, Claire, but it might next offseason if they want to try to keep Mike Onwenu around. Now, Lindstrom was a first-round pick. And that factors into, rightly or wrongly, the evaluation on these guys. Onwenu wasn't. But Onwenu has been near the top of the league in a lot of different categories. And you're looking at pass protection metrics. He's 350 pounds. We know what he is in the run game. He's going to make a lot of money next year. And so I'd be curious to see how much money the Patriots would be willing to spend to keep a guy at that position.
Gut feeling, would you say? Are you going with? I mean, obviously, this is only your gut feeling. This is opinion. This isn't you reporting. I'm not kind of asking you to tip us off or anything. But your gut feeling of it, being as experienced as you are with how the Patriots work, that kind of thing. Do you think that we're looking at more, like you said, the later day free agency guy, picking him up for a bit cheaper? Or is this a heavy thing for the draft that we should really be looking at that first round pick, offensive tackle, the left side guy, that's really where us fans should be sort of setting our sights?
Yeah, I think it would be fair to do that because it's a pretty, I'll say this about the tackle class. This is what always happens at tackle. These guys get pushed up because there's just not many of them who can play the position and play it well. And so if you've got any promise at that spot, you are going to be a top half of the first round player for the most part. And there are several of those guys in this year's draft, depending on how you think of arm length. I know Dante Scarnecchia isn't necessarily dead set on it being a critical factor. He once told me when I asked him about arm length for tackles, he said that bleep is way overrated. So that might be good news for Peter Skoronski if he wants to come to the Patriots. He's got 32 and a quarter inch arms. I mean, little T-Rex arms there at tackle, but a great athlete and probably the most polished tackle of the group. But Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State, DeJuan Jones, maybe even a first round pick, also from Ohio State, Darrell Wright from Tennessee. Broderick Jones from Georgia. There's a number of these guys that could be available to the Patriots at 14 overall. And it would make sense. We've seen them go tackle. We've seen them go Nate Solder in the first round. We've seen them go Isaiah Wynn in the first round. So that would make sense, Claire. I just would try to. This was, you went into the legal tampering period with a handful of starter tackles available, not just McGlinchey and Taylor, who got signed yesterday. We mentioned Orlando Brown. We mentioned Caleb McGarry. Andrew Wiley was a starting caliber player for the Chiefs. He got signed yesterday for a pretty inexpensive deal. I would have dipped into free agency. Maybe they still will here at tackle because there's so few resources at the receiver position available on the free agent market that I would almost want to reserve my first round pick and have the ability to use that on the wideout position because I just don't know unless you can swing a real trade, a meaningful, impactful trade at receiver with one of your draft picks. You're not improving your receiver room unless you're doing it in the first round of the draft. And it's a pretty thin draft class at the receiver position too. So I wouldn't wait until day 2. I wouldn't be hoping that I strike gold in day 3. I would be trying to get one of the best receivers in this year's draft because you need to get much better at that position, in my opinion, especially now that Myers is gone. If you want to score with the likes of the Bills and maybe Aaron Rodgers and the Packers and what they've got going on down in Miami, I'm not a huge fan of Tua Tagovailoa, but that's an offense that scored a lot of points last year. You got to be able to keep up with those teams. You're not going to be able to hold them to the teens week after week. So I get it if they spend that first round pick at tackle. Those big bodies are always good. They're always valuable. They're easier to project. But if it were me, I'd be preparing my team to play a game in free agency along the offensive line, and then I'd be looking to upgrade at receiver in the draft.
I wasn't really going to go into this myself in regards to tight end, but because of what you specifically just said in regards to receiver, because of how there's such depth at the tight end class this year, and we know that the Patriots have had their weapon one, as people like to say, as a tight end in the past. Do you think that maybe this is the year that you'd look at sort of working your offense that way? Because there's such good tight end depth in the draft, you may not even need to use your very first round pick to get someone who would be worthy of that weapon one sort of branding.
Yeah, it's a good point, Claire. And we've seen obviously Bill O'Brien be great at using those tight ends, right? Especially those 2 tight end packages. And so that would be a classic Bill thing as well. Try to zig when the rest of the league zags, and he tried it with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. It just didn't work. Now he could do it again. It is a really deep tight end class. I'm sure you are all over it, Claire. It's as deep as it's ever been, in all honesty. So, whether it's Dalton Kincaid from Utah or Michael Mayer from Notre Dame or Darnell Washington from Georgia, Croft from South Dakota State is a real player who's a dual threat blocker and receiver and a pretty good athlete. that you could get on day 2. Like there's going to be options there for them. And so maybe they're looking at it that way. No, yeah, everybody wants us to spend on a receiver, but we're not doing that.
No. Whoops. Oh no.
Did you throw Phil out the club?
I did.
No, I got.
Oh,
you guys got me. I got a spam phone call, I think there. So
I'm sorry, man.
No, it's okay. It just messes with my video for some reason. Like, would Bill do that? Yeah. No, we're not going to spend a receiver. We're going to go get a tight end, and we're going to be just fine. And people aren't going to be able to defend us because nobody can defend, really good tight ends. They're too big for corners, and they're too fast for they're too big for corners and safeties, and they're too fast for linebackers. So
Mr.
maybe that's how they're looking at it, Claire. That wouldn't stun me because they've done it before, and it is a deep class at that position.
I think they should get 2. They should get 2. They should get Washington and another one because there's later round guys that they could get. We should get 2. We should stock up.
Look at her.
Okay.
Look at her.
I know. This is the draft Claire's been waiting for.
Before the show, we were sitting here talking. Claire's like, "No, you take the tight ends this week. It's okay. I have all these other questions for Phil. You take the tight ends." So I'm sitting here and I've got all my tight ended stuff, lined up and everything. I want to talk about Washington. Is he going to be there in the second round? Is Bill going to move back? Is there any possibility that the Patriots go out and sign a Dalton Schultz or a Mike Gesicki? But no, Claire just she can't help herself, people. Claire. She can't help herself. She really can't.
Classic.
All right.
She's got a brand. She
does.
Murph.
She does. And I understand it. So I'm going to switch over to the big signing that the Patriots made yesterday. And we're bringing back Jonathan Jones. Now, I am thrilled about this. I thought it was fantastic. A lot of people out here are talking about how Jones is so diverse, and if the Patriots miss out on a safety, we can just make Jonathan Jones the free safety. What do you think of all this talk, Phil? And were you surprised that Jones came back for the number that he did? Because personally, I think he left money and years out on the table that he could have gotten elsewhere.
Yeah, I think he might have. I think the league views him as a good slot corner.
Yeah,
one of the best in the league, and the money he's getting here in New England, honestly, would sort of reflect
it.
Yeah. That's about the top of the market for slot corners. As far as the safety stuff goes, I've been kind of leading that charge. I believe that they will consider him to be Devin McCourty's replacement at free safety, and it's because of not only his speed and the ball skills that he's shown to have when having the opportunity to make plays on the football, but it's his intelligence and it's his understanding of every position on that defense. And when you're the quarterback of the secondary, the way Devin McCourty was for a long, long time, in charge of making sure those guys are lined up properly, you have to understand every position of defense. Jonathan Jones has played every position in the secondary. He's played in the slot. Obviously, he played outside last year. He played in the deep portion of the field at safety in Super Bowl 53 against the Rams. That's a big part of his role. The biggest game of that season, helps them win a championship. So he can do that. He's respected. I think he's going to be a captain next year. So I thought it was vitally important that they brought him back, and it would not shock me if they put him at free safety because they have a really promising slot corner that they drafted last year in the third round, in Jones. So he can play outside as well. There's some versatility there. Bill's going to use him in a variety of different ways, but that might be the way they get their best 5 on the field is by putting John Jones at free safety and letting Marcus Jones play in the slot.
And a quick shout out to the next Pats podcast that Phil put out on, I think it was Monday, where you got to sit down with Jonathan Jones and have a chat about that. So make sure you go and check that out.
Yeah, we did. We had a great chat. He's he wants to be here too. I think that's why you sign before you even have the opportunity to hit free agency. Now we know tampering happens even before the legal tampering period.
Nobody talks.
So some of his agents had an idea what his market was, I think, and I don't think he would have just taken, a ridiculous hometown discount just to stay. But I do know he wanted to stay, and he really he's valued his time here. He values being with one organization. He wants to continue to be a big factor in the community. There are few better people to mold yourself after, both on the field and off, than Devin McCourty. And I think that's somebody, I know that's somebody that Jonathan Jones has a lot of respect for, watched his career and said, if I could do the same thing that he's done, I'd be doing okay. And so I think that's sort of what he's after. He probably won't make as much money as Devin made over the course of his career, but that's hard to do. Devin did okay for himself in that regard, but
he sure did.
As far as the impact, I think that's what he's going for.
Just to kind of go a little bit slightly off topic when it comes to Patriots, because I know we'll bounce back anyway, but I wanted to ask you, as like a Boston media sports guy, a beat reporter, those kind of categories, free agency frenzy. I mean, how frustrated do you get as a media guy that you are sitting there waiting for these reports? And I mean, do you ever let yourself get emotionally connected to why can't they just sign this guy? There's this one guy that you're waiting for them to sign. It makes so much sense.
Who's your free agent crush?
No, but do you ever fall into that trap of you're sort of sitting waiting for it to drop because you just think it makes so much sense, or are you just completely professional 110% of the time, Phil?
Boy,
don't out yourself. Don't
what's
do it.
funny is
not for us, Phil.
We're trying to get this stuff down too, so we're making phone calls and sending texts and trying to figure out, okay, what do you think's going to happen with this guy? What are you guys anticipating there? So it's just so busy. You don't really have time to wait or hope that, you land somebody. Now I say this all the time. I think in our business, it is important to acknowledge your biases. And so I know I grew up in Massachusetts, and I grew up a Patriots fan, and I grew up rooting for Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. And I have to acknowledge that now that I go about my job the way that I do. And I use it as sort of a way to check myself. What I ask, am I asking the right things? Am I being as down the middle as I can? Am I being as fair as possible? I want to be able to reflect in that way. I think the same is true at a time like this, at this point in the league year, where you have to acknowledge, whether we're writing or we're on a podcast or we're on TV, I'm a human being. I've developed relationships with these other human beings that are in the locker room. So whether it's Jonathan Jones or Jacoby Myers, two guys that I really like as people, or anybody else, when it gets to this time of year, you still have to be fair, and you have to acknowledge that, okay, I feel for this person as a fellow human being, and as somebody that I have sort of like a professional friendship with, maybe even certainly a relationship with, and a lot of respect for. But I still want to make sure I'm doing my job. I think sometimes I can help you do your job in the best way possible, but I think it's important to reflect on those thoughts and those feelings and those emotions, and just, use it as sort of a reference point, and just sort of to kind of get yourself back to center. So I'll never say, oh, no, none of it ever matters to me. I'm totally devoid of emotion or feeling. Was I hoping that they would bring Jacoby Myers back? I'm sure part of me was, but I also don't want to come across as somebody who's rooting for the team or mad at the team for not bringing him back. I want to be fair to all sides, because I think that's part of my job, and that's part of getting the most accurate information out there to people who listen to us and watch us and read us, because that's what they're looking for.
In that same vein, in the same emotional connection, and maybe something that you can kind of reflect upon, that you don't need to worry about bias so much, is a question that I have posed to you probably the last 2 years, because I think I've been doing this gig over 2 years now, and you've been on the show for that long of time as well, is this year, Phil Perry, who is your draft crush? Not necessarily who the Patriots are going to take. If you were a GM of a team, any team, whatever, just the Phil Perry Patriots, whatever you want to call it, who would you be sitting back and looking at thinking, I want that guy on my team, regardless of his position, sort of thing? Who is your draft crush for 2023?
It's a great question. I'll give you one on offense and one on defense. And the offensive,
I love that. You always negotiate with me. I love
the
it.
offense. On the offensive side, it's a guy I just gave to the Patriots in my latest mock draft, which is going to be if it's not on NBCSportsBoston.com right now, it will be very soon. I love Zay Flowers, and it's not just because he went to BC and I went to BC High. He is. I think he has some Jalen Waddle-y types of traits. And I loved Waddle when he was coming out of Alabama. And had Zay Flowers been at Alabama, who knows where we would be talking about him going in the draft. But he went to BC. They had issues offensively. They had issues at quarterback. And he's still going to be a first-round pick, in my opinion. I just think his quickness and speed, the combination of those two things, will allow an offense to use him in so many different ways that in today's game, where I think size matters a little less at receiver, because it's about space now. I think guys who can make the most of that space and win in a phone booth, so to speak, to use the old scouting cliche, like he can do that. He can make you miss in a variety of ways. He can run by you. He can stop and start and accelerate, I think, as well as anybody in this class. Maybe Jackson Smith and Jigba is right there with him. He had incredible short area quickness times. And I like Smith and Jigba as well. His size for that quickness to be what he possesses is kind of mind-boggling. I mean, it's Julian Edelman type of time quickness at 6'1". But Flowers to me is a really fun player. End arounds, screens, down the field out of the slot, short to intermediate routes, whip routes, especially in this Patriots offense. It's why I matched him with the Patriots in this mock. I had them trading down to get him. They traded down 10 spots and they got him at 24.
Nice.
I love him.
Nice.
I think he would eat in Bill O'Brien's offense. And then the defensive player I'll give you that I really like, that I think would be a Patriots fit. Although, I shouldn't say anything. I mean, who knows? Bill has surprised us before with the positions that he takes, and it shouldn't be stunning if he does anything in the first round because we've been stunned by everything. Jack Campbell, the linebacker from Iowa, at 6'4", 250 pounds.
Jesus.
With the kind of explosiveness that he showed in the short area quickness that he showed at the combine, those guys just don't exist. Like they're very few and far between. And I'm not saying that he's going to be the next Brian Urlacher or anything, but man, it's just those traits are rare. And he had
a really good day in Indy.
Oh, and I liked him before the combine, and I was asking scouts about him. And said, what do you think? Because it's a pretty thin linebacker class in the draft.
Yeah.
What do you think? How good is he? How will he test? And I was told, he's going to be faster than you think, and he's going to be more explosive than you think. And he was, not necessarily the 40 time that wouldn't blow you away, but the shuttles and the jumps. This guy's a rare dude at that position. And you factor in the Kirk Ferentz connection, and maybe it is a Patriots pick. I think he's a first round player. I just don't know if the league values that position high. It's sort of like the running back conversation. That linebackers become almost the same thing. I think teams are a little scared to take those guys in the first round because they tend to get hurt. But that would be my defensive draft crush this year.
See, I'm with you because I thought he was fantastic, and I've got a friend who is champion for the Patriots to have him because he's utterly besotted by him. So if the Patriots take this guy, my friend is going to freak out so bad. And you're right, he tested really well, and it was really good to watch him. And I'm kind of hoping that the rest of the league don't think there's worth in like taking the linebacker and that he drops the Patriots because.
And a lot of people have him ranked
really
as
good.
like the third best linebacker in this class, and I think. Grabbing him in the second round would just be an absolute steal. He's a top 20 player in this draft, and if Bill could grab him with the second round pick, I would dance naked up and down Main Street. I really would.
God. God.
No, I know. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody.
Whoa. I'm just trying to look for his numbers because I'm like, just drafting him would be enough. Thanks, Murph. We really appreciate the thought on that. So,
just before we go to a couple of questions from the chat room, bud.
This is a commercial break.
Are we seeing a evolution in Bill Belichick in getting his guys signed early and not allowing them to test free agency?
He has, generally speaking, done a little bit of both, right? Like Jonathan Jones, the end of his first contract, they signed him to a multi-year extension and made sure they kept him away from free agency. They did it with, I know, Jelani Tavai, right? Like last season, you sign him to an extension during the year. It's like, that's sort of weird timing. You really need to pull the trigger on that. But, I thought Tavai was good last year.
Yeah.
He's never going to be an all-pro off-the-ball linebacker, but I thought he was just fine. I thought Joanne Bentley was really good. I don't really think they, as much as I like Jack Campbell, based on how many off-the-ball linebackers you play at one time these days, I'm not sure it's like a huge need for them right now. So he's always done a little bit of both, but then we've seen scenarios where, he lets Dante Hightower go to free agency, find his value. Devin McCourty goes to free agency, value. Julian Edelman, Matthew Slater, even like core guys. Bill will just say, go ahead. It'll come back to us at the end.
Yeah.
But, we're going to let you play out your contract and go see what you can get. And we'll see if we can match. So he's always done a little bit of both. And, I think we've seen that this offseason too with their two big free agents, Myers and Jones. They kind of let both those guys get right to free agency, and they were only able to keep one of them. So it's an interesting way of doing things. There's no one set way it feels like that Bill Belichick does anything. I do wonder if, the status sometimes of the undrafted guys remains a part of the evaluation for even Belichick. Even though he says,
we found this guy,
Well, but he always
the next one.
Doesn't matter how you got here; it's what you do when you're here.
Okay,
right? I mean, that's what he says. Now, it feels like the undrafted guys don't always get the respect of being a big money player. When it comes time for that, as much as he likes Jonathan Jones, he hasn't exactly broken the bank since he's been here. Malcolm Butler, moves on when he can, gets a big money deal from Tennessee. Jacoby Myers now, so I just wonder if there is something to what you were saying, where it's all well and good for Bill to say to us publicly and to his team, it doesn't matter how you got here, it's what you do once you are here. It doesn't always feel like that with the undrafted guys. It feels like you're undrafted. If that's how you got here,
I can find you.
I can find another one.
Yeah.
I say and why you're as good as you are, and so it doesn't break my heart if you were to go. That's something that's interesting to me because of what he says and what he does. There are things sometimes in conflict.
Okay, so before we go to commercial break, we'll go to the chat. Just trying to find the questions. Oh, there was a quote. Myers quotes to Justina Anderson, "It's hard to turn down Las Vegas. They wanted me. I wanted them. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with the Patriots." So I guess it was a bit of the writing on the wall on that one. Oh, yeah. And from the offshoot of that, Joel says, "I wonder what will happen to Hunter Renfrow." That's a good one.
Yeah, Renfro's been hurt, and I think he's only got 1 year left on the extension that he signed with the Raiders. So maybe they're looking to move on from him. He's not going to block. Oops, excuse me, guys. He's not going to block the way Myers is. So Myers brings a little different element to that slot position. The Myers quote to Josina is interesting because it indicates both when he says they wanted me, I wanted them, and where he says, unfortunately, it didn't work out with the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two things that, this is reading between the lines now, but those two lines would suggest to me that the Patriots did not come through with the same offer. If it was the same offer and he chose the Raiders over the Patriots, would you say, unfortunately, it didn't work out with the Patriots? You would say, I loved my time in New England. It was time for me to move on. I'm excited to be with the Raiders. This seems like, well, they wanted me, I wanted them. The Patriots, maybe they don't fall into the same category. Again, that's reading between the lines. That's not what he said. But given some of the things he said at the end of the year, given the respect I know he has for Mac Jones, I do think he enjoyed it here. And I think if the money would have worked out to be pretty similar, my guess would have been that he would decide to stay. And again, those quotes to me, they make it sound like the Patriots kind of made his decision for him. So that's interesting to me.
That is very interesting.
Kids love Christmas. Claire loves Titans. Fred, yeah, we all know that, Chris. And Lee follows that up with, and Murph loves guys named Jay Jones. On that, actually, I have a question in regards to that, Phil, because have you got any news in regards to the grievance that with Jack Jones? Has it been resolved? I mean, it's rumored that they're losing something like 20,000 in cap space due to it. Do you know if anything is sort of, for want of a better phrase, really being sorted out? Is it a definite that he's back on the roster when we finish? What do you think?
So I didn't even know. Has Jack Jones filed a grievance? I knew about the Jake Bailey grievance.
He didn't. Jack did not file a grievance.
Okay.
No, it was the other way around,
Yeah.
and it was
Jake Bailey.
Bailey did.
Yes.
And let's touch on that for a second. Jake Bailey came in here, had a fantastic rookie year. Second year was all pro, was given that humongous contract and just didn't live up to it. Do you know if injuries played a factor in this, Bud, or was it just, I don't know. It just seems to me it was really confusing last year when they did sanction him, when they did suspend him in the way that they did, and how this is all played out after a guy that was so promising coming in here, to see him jettisoned the way he was.
So there were injuries, and there have been injuries the last couple of years. I think this year the source of the confusion and the disconnect was just, is he ready or is he not to come back?
Yeah. And
is he telling some people that he is ready, but others that he's not? And is everything, getting done the way it needs to get done so that he is getting ready? They did designate him to return off of IR, so they were expecting him to come back last year, and he never did. And now his agent would tell you that he was ready to, and that they're not sure why he was suspended at the end of the year. And we understand that, that's his representation. They want to try to put him in the best light possible. I'm fascinated to find out the details, if we ever find those details from this grievance, because he's been cost plenty of money here by this, and so not only for like his future prospects, but the money that he was guaranteed on his current contract, or his last contract with the Patriots. So I think there was injury stuff that led to miscommunication, I would say, Murph. I think there was some mental stuff involved here too. He had gotten so sideways. You wonder what's going on behind the scenes that might be bothering.
Does he even want to play ball anymore?
It's a good question.
That's the way it kind of felt.
Yeah, I don't know. Or if it's just he's going through an episode in his life that is really weighing on him and impacting him at his job. Right. Yeah,
I'm not judging.
So there's a lot going on there. But once that grievance got filed, you knew he wasn't coming back. And so it didn't surprise me when they released him the other day.
The thing that I was talking about was, sorry, Murph, it happened at the same time as that when Jack Jones got moved on to the reserve injury list. What I should have said is the suspension of Jack Jones.
Right.
The grievance was kind of from the Patriots to him, not the other way around, the way that the Jake Bailey one is. But it was, to sort of misrepresent it, then maybe I should have said the suspension. Because had you got any further information in regard to that? Because that seems to have slipped on by. The Jake Bailey thing, as you said, he's filed a grievance, but the Jack Jones thing just sort of has tapered away, and we don't know. All that was really said was that he's there was a miscommunication in regards to him rehabbing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think that one is I don't know if I would call it water under the bridge necessarily, but that one's not going to linger, is my understanding. That he was punished at the end of the year. He's suspended.
Yeah.
What's interesting about both these suspensions, rare in that they were team suspensions and they were designated as such on the league wire. So that doesn't usually happen. Usually you see somebody's popped for PEDs or substance abuse, or that's a league issued suspension. These were team issued suspensions. So that's usually indicative of conduct detrimental, essentially. And Jack Jones is somebody who dealt with a lot of stuff in college. He's somebody who I think is very much learning to be a pro. Keeping somebody like Jonathan Jones around, I would say, for Jack Jones, very important.
Yeah, very important.
Especially after you lose Devin McCourty, because he has to learn. He has to figure out what's acceptable, what's not. He had never, I don't think he had ever really been required to, with any injuries that he had in the past, like been required to
show up
and perform in rehab in a certain way, even though he was at a high level program at USC. I just don't think that was ever an experience he'd ever been through before. So that one I don't think is going to impact his standing necessarily with the team moving forward. I think he's going to be given a shot to start next year. I think they're going to be figuring out who their starting corners are. Jalen Mills started last year. Jack Jones started last year. I think they need another boundary guy next year. I'm not sure how much Jalen Mills helped himself with how the end of last season went. He was hurt. It was always, is he coming back? Is he not? He's limited in practice. He might be back. Is it a game time decision? Soft tissue injuries are preventable at the end of the day. That's how the Patriots view it. And he missed a lot of time at the end of the year with a soft tissue injury. And I'm not sure the team feels as though he's the most dependable guy in the world right now. That I think is fair to say. And so, I wouldn't put his name down in permanent ink for a starting corner spot next year, just because he's been too banged up, and he missed some time in Philly too. It's just sort of been part of his MO. Unfortunately for him, you gotta be out there, and he hasn't been. So I would expect they're gonna use Jack, but I think they're gonna add to that corner room this offseason as well.
Speaking directly to that, man, what are the odds that I get my free agent crush in James Bradberry?
I wouldn't rule it out. Versatile guy, man or zone.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a little undervalued. To me, Jamel Dean was way undervalued. I thought Jamel Dean was going to be maybe a $17 million a year guy, and that might have been an overpay. But he was sort of the best corner
13,
on the market, and
13.
He's young, and now he's getting 13. So that, that was surprising to me. I think we're seeing that the league didn't love this free agent class. When Jacoby Myers is the best receiver on the market, he gets 11 a year. And Jamel Dean's the best corner on the market. These are some of the most expensive positions in the sport. You're talking $11 million per year. That's really good value, but I think it just tells you how the league views the actual talents of these guys. Bradbury's going to come in less than that, in my opinion. So would you be willing to spend, say it's 10 or 11 for James Bradbury for a couple of years? I might be willing to do that. The other name that I would consider at that position would be Rock Ya-Sin, who played for the Raiders. Big man to man
injured, dude. Why does everybody, the talent's there? I love the guy, but it's almost like he's the Jacoby Myers of not the Jacoby Myers, the the Jimmy Garoppolo of of cornerbacks. The talent is there. He's a guy that's going to shoot when he's there. It's solid as hell, but he can't stay on the field.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you, and that's why his market's going to be a little suppressed. And you're probably talking about $8 million.
$8 million, yeah,
for a guy like that.
Same page.
But as a scheme fit, he is a fit. And so
he's the better press guy, I think.
If you're looking to save money too, I'm just curious if they just put their foot down and they say, sorry, Jacoby, we can't go to 12, right?
Yeah.
Say they want to try to factor in for the taxes, and they say we can't go to 12 or 13. The Raiders going to give you 11. We can't get there. Well, all right. Where's the money go? Where's the money going? They've got money.
Got to go somewhere.
We know that. Bill's talking about how ownership.
Them's the rules. You got to spend the money.
Well, and Bill's saying at the end of the season they're 27th in the league in cash spending the last 3 years. Okay, so you're just going to pass on every deal, and you're just going to have a roster full of C-level veterans that make enough money that you spend to the cap. I don't know if that's a great way to build a team.
As opposed to B-level veterans that you're overpaying. I mean, they did that 3 years ago, 3 years ago, and it really didn't work out.
Well, what's interesting about that, Murph, is you're right. long term, no. That like I would say it hasn't gotten them any closer to a championship. It did take them from a 7-win team to a 10-win team.
True.
And if they could improve somehow 3 games by spending say they pay McGarry and they pay Bradbury,
yep,
and they trade for Hopkins and they draft Zay Flowers, like that's an aggressive offseason. That might be you might have other teams scoff at that and say, well, hey, quote unquote, when's the last time anybody who quote unquote won the offseason actually won anything of value? I would say you're right. But this is a team that I think the pressure's on for them to actually make the postseason and like make some noise in the postseason. You can't afford, in my opinion, you can't afford to sit back and try to get every great deal the way you always did when Tom Brady was here. If you can do it, you might end up an 8-win team again. And if that happens, then I'm not sure we're not looking at some major changes this offseason. So that's all I would say is I think the pressure's on for them to be good. And the best way to be good is to have real talent. And I think Bill O'Brien is talent. And I think he represents talent in a way that, he'll be sort of a force multiplier for everybody, not only on offense, but on defense too. If the offense is better, that should help the defense. They're going to be on the sidelines a little bit more. They're going to be able to rest a little bit more often. Bill O'Brien's a huge add for this team. But if you think Bill O'Brien and a bunch of C-level guys is really going to help you contend, forget the conference. How about in your division? I don't think that's enough. So I would expect them to add some real talent here, whether it's today or in the next few days or weeks. Like they have to elevate their overall talent level to me in a significant way.
Does Myers' departure open up things for the remaining guys that are in that wide receiver room?
What's interesting about his departure is that, they don't have a slot receiver on the roster right now. Parker certainly isn't. He's your X. He's a true X.
No,
I view both Thornton and Bourne as Z types of players where you can line them up really anywhere. Would you put them consistently in the slot? Like, do you want them at the point of attack in the run game? Do you feel like they can get open in a phone booth? Like even though Myers wasn't the quickest guy in the world, he understood how to get open. He understood how to find the soft spots in the zone and find them quickly.
Yep.
He was a slot guy. They don't really have one anymore. Trey Nixon maybe is the slot, but again, is that enough? So the good thing for them on the receiver front, even though it's not the deepest class in the world, it is pretty deep in terms of slot talent, whether it's Smith and Jigba or Flowers or I don't know, somebody like Reed from MSU, from Michigan State. He's like a vertical slot. They've got, Tank Dell from Houston. There's a million. Josh Downs, there are a million 5 foot something, 170 pound something receivers in this year's draft that are quick as a hiccup and have some real speed down the field too. So maybe they feel like they can get their next slot in the draft.
I agree.
Before we bounce away from wide receiver, because we've had a couple of questions because off the bat of this conversation, it's been asked if you can see Bill swinging a trade for a wide receiver, but off that, because I kind of think you sort of semi-answered that, but it's been specifically asked by Joel, how about Juju Smith-Schuster or Sammy Watkins? And OBJ is a free agent. So, I mean, it all seems a bit, but what do you think on those names, Phil?
Yeah, so Watkins to me, I think he's, I don't want to say he's washed. I just don't think he's what I think you need somebody who's going to change the game for you. Like you need a start. You need not only a starting level player. I think you need a starting level player who makes opposing defensive coordinators sweat a little bit. That's not Sammy Watkins at this point in his career. I don't think it's Juju Smith-Schuster at this point in his career. He had a pretty nice statistical season, and maybe he'll end up getting a deal similar to the one Myers got. If that's here in New England, I would say, why? What? If you weren't willing to give it to Myers, but you give it to Juju Smith-Schuster, that would not make much sense to me at all. Although Bill loved Juju when Juju was in Pittsburgh.
What scares me.
He was a huge fan of Smith-Schuster when he was in Pittsburgh. So I guess we'll see on that front. The one thing I would say about Odell Beckham, I've spoken to some people who were at his workout. And the Patriots were there, which our buddy Doug Kyde reported, I think, the day of the workout.
Yep.
Patriots were there. They were one of the teams that were there. I heard he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And, he wasn't the old Odell, but he looked like a starting level receiver. And I think he's going to want way more money than the Patriots are willing to pay. I think he's going to find out that nobody's willing to pay what he really wants. And so he's going to understand, all right, I got to do the 1-year deal thing, and try to rework my market, right? Ball out. I could see the Patriots being interested if the price is right. Of course, that's the huge caveat. But if the price is right, get that guy in here, high upside, low risk, low reward. Somebody who could potentially just give you a little bit of depth there because, okay, so Myers, you lose your slot. You also lose your depth, and Aguilar, as much as, he gave you very little, he at least was a professional caliber 4th or 5th guy. Now you've got 3 guys. One of them, you really don't know what you have in Tyquan Thornton, in my opinion. Like he did not by season's end scream to me starting receiver in 2023. He just hadn't done enough. So it like as depth as a 2 or a 3, it wouldn't shock me if they made a little bit of a run at Odell.
Before we wrap up, because I know that you're going to have loads of pings on your phone and have to be doing stuff, because I've been kind of trying to check mine to make sure there's not any breaking news that you need to disappear and go and report, basically.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Claire.
And I know this isn't a Patriots thing, but because we've got you and because it's a free agency thing and it's kind of a hot topic at the moment, because there are still 2 big names when it comes to quarterbacks just sitting out there. You mentioned a comment probably about 10 minutes ago in regards to league value and kind of like not paying as much this year for players. I mean, do you think that maybe it's paving the way to sort of show the reasoning that Lamar Jackson isn't going to get all that big money that he's expecting because the NFL are trying to move away from just throwing too much money at a quarterback, as you said, the league value kind of thing? That's why we're seeing such a delay here.
I think that's possible. I think with Lamar, it's a unique situation because of who he is. So he's missed time the last 2 years. He is somebody that you have to build your offense around. Although I think some of that gets overstated. He's been in a very particular kind of offense, obviously, in Baltimore, where they did build it around him. But with Greg Roman there, I'm not sure they were willing to blaze new trails, so to speak. I think Greg Roman is and he's had some success with these mobile quarterbacks, but he's kind of a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
You're not developing a nuanced passing game probably with Greg Roman. And I think that's something Lamar would have benefited from, because I do think he's a better passer than people give him credit for. He's got a better, I was shocked to see this the other day, but he's got a better passer rating career than Peyton Manning right now. I think he's got about a 97 career passer rating, which is, I think, top 15 all time. And a lot of the top 15 it's skewed because the game has changed the way that it has. But, so it's a lot of modern day guys that are in that top 15, but still he's a completely effective thrower of the football.
Yep.
And he's been given, for all the arguments we make on Mac Jones's behalf about the weapons around him and how he hasn't had much the last 2 years. Look at what Lamar's had. I mean, he's had Mark Andrews, who's a good player, but very little in the way of receiving help. So I think teams
not
are
for a lack
scared.
of trying, though. They're drafting the guys. They're just not working out. And they talk about Bill not being able to draft a wide receiver. Go take a look at what's happening down there.
And isn't it funny? Similar scouting backgrounds. I mean, like the Aussie background is the Bill background. They're one of the same.
They are.
That so, and Ozzy has developed his own styles, and DaCosta under Ozzy, their own traits that they're looking for and things like that. Like, it's been a while since Bill was Ozzy's boss, but same tree. And they both have had a hard time. I just think with Lamar, it's the injury, it's the offense, and it's the guaranteed money. Like, that's the thing that I think owners don't want to do, is give out a fully guaranteed deal. I think he's going to end up getting a team or two who are really interested, though. Those conversations will really start tomorrow. He doesn't have an agent. So the legal tampering period is for
Call my
certified
mom.
agents to talk with teams. But so if she's not a certified agent, that I get. So the rule, this is something that was new to me because of this Lamar situation. I guess the rule is if you don't have one of those certified agents, you wait until it's actually legal to tamper.
No kidding.
Or it's legal
I
to talk.
learned that this morning. Yeah, I learned that this morning.
So that it's again unique. It's unique for a player not to have an agent, to be represented by himself or his mom, or so that'll be the fun story tomorrow. See who's interested in Lamar.
Okay, two-part question before we let you go, Phil. First, thanks so much for being here. Is Damian Harris coming back? Is the running back room looking rather thin, or do you like what the Pats did last year and think that those guys are just going to slide right in? Or is my guy Deuce Vaughn really on the radar here in New England?
And I get grief for my tight endage thing. You should get grief for your.
I love Deuce Vaughn. I think they should be interested in a third down back this year, whether it's Tajay Spears or Deuce Vaughn, somebody along those lines. Because I'm not sure it's Pierre Strong. I think they thought they might be getting that kind of player in Pierre Strong. And we'll see. They, generally speaking, at the pass catching back role, they do like to redshirt those guys, and that's essentially what Pierre Strong did last year. So we'll see on that front. They do still have Ty Montgomery. I don't know if you want to lean on him as a go-to guy in a really critical. That's a critical role in your offense. You want to, again.
I'd rather spend the 4th round pick on Deuce.
This is another situation where it's like, no, we'll roll with the C-level player, and and we'll see if it can work out. Like I would want more. I would be more aggressive. Harris, I could see Harris coming back. I don't see them giving him much money. That's another market that I'd be interested to see what it looks like.
Ramondre can't do what he did last year again. He can't be asked to do that.
He won't. Don't worry, he won't.
It was just too much.
You're right.
I don't remember the last time a running back in this system got that many touches and saw that much time on the field. You would really have to go into the Wayback Machine to find it.
Yeah, I mean Corey Dillon, maybe. I don't know. So I don't know if Kevin Harris is the guy either. So maybe they end up drafting somebody at that spot. That I think what would be the smart thing to do. I think if you start throwing real money at running backs, veteran running backs, generally speaking, those contracts don't look good by the end.
Yeah.
But we'll see if it's a 1-year deal for Damian Harris for a few $1 million. That I would say would have real value because of what it would do for Stevenson. You're right. You're right on that track, Murph. You can't. As much as Bill Belichick tells us that he loves him at the podium, he must have said it half a dozen times last year how much he loves Stevenson. You can't. If he's one of your best players, you want him fresh when the games matter, and so you can't run him around.
That's it, buddy. I want to thank you so much for taking time away from your regular gig, and of course your growing family. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On the upcoming. That's fantastic. Don't forget, Murphy is a great name for a boy or a girl as a first name. That would be stop. Claire.
We hadn't considered that yet. We're not locked into anything right now.
I mean, Murphy Perry would be a fantastic name.
No,
it really would. It really
awful.
Would.
No, it hurts my ears so bad. It hurts my ears so bad.
Tell it before you go, but tell everybody what you got going on this week. Are we going to see you on air a whole bunch at NBC Sports Boston? Whether it's early edition, which you've just been killing lately, or late night, on BST.
Thanks, Murph. Yeah, definitely early edition, 6 to 7 most nights this week. And we'll have all sorts of free agency coverage there. We'll be doing some draft stuff as well. All our writings on NBCSportsBoston.com. I've got a new mock draft up, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, that the people can peruse. Some interesting corners available, some interesting tackles available. They end up going with Zay Flowers. So check the scenarios. I've given you the pick, but look at the scenarios, and then you can feel free to come yell at me and say, why would you do that with this guy on the board? You know, Lucas Van Ness, they should take him at 14.
Love the feedback.
Idiot. I love that. So
yeah.
Check us out on the website there and on Twitter at Phil A. Perry. All my stuff will be there.
That's fantastic.
Did you pick any tight ends? See, this is the key question, Phil.
So
go read. Don't give it away. Go read. We're trying to get clicks here.
I need to make sure that if he's coming back on the show or not, Murph.
Claire. So no tight ends to the Patriots, but I think I had three. I had three going in the first round. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good tight.
Can I ask where you put Washington?
Washington went to the Bengals at the back end of the first round.
Do you blame them? All they've got is Devin Asiasi at the moment, and we all know how that works out. So.
That would be Washington on the Bengals would be scary. Would be really scary.
Yeah.
Just what they need.
To will that into
just what they need. Really. Phil, thanks again for being here. We want to thank everybody that was in the chat room. Claire, go ahead, take us out.
Well, as he said, big thanks to Phil Perry for his time and his insight, particularly whilst the free agency frenzy is literally happening as we speak, folks. So make sure you follow Phil on Twitter to get all the news that you need. And once again, this is it for another edition of One Patriots Place, brought to you by the E2G Sports Network. I am Clazzy Clare Cooper. He is Thomas Murphy, and great thanks to Phil Perry for his time and his insight, as I said. So tune in next time, folks, and go Pats.
Jermaine.